We made a child component as a stateless functional component. Let's now make a child component as a stateful class component. We're going to add a counter below the heading that keeps track of its count. We'll start by writing a test. I'll paste in some test information. I'll go ahead and generate the import for shallow. And then instead, we can't import counter yet because it doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create it. And then paste in some boilerplate for our counter component. I can now come over and import counter, but what I see first is that I'm also not importing React. And with that in place, my test passes. We're going to follow the same process. We're going to have a test that fails for passing in the information of the component. Then we're going to fix the presentation component. And then we're going to fix the wrapper component that uses that presentation component. First, our failing test. And TypeScript helps us fail faster by telling us that we're violating the contract. There's no label on the counter component. I add that information as inline type information. And I'd like to have some static field information to set the default props. In case you don't pass in a label prop, we will set it to count by default. Remember, the question mark means that this can be optional when using a component. Let's now make the label dynamic. And we will use this.props, and then off of props, we will get the label. With that, when I save, the test should pass. We mentioned we don't like our interface information inline, so we will extract this to a standalone interface called iCounterProps. And so far, so good. Our component, our child component, works okay. Let's wire it into the UI by going back to app.tsx and use the component under the heading. As soon as I start typing, the IDE will find all the components in the project that match it. When I hit enter, it will generate the import. When I hit space, it will prompt me for the properties defined on the interface. When I hit enter, it will autocomplete that, and it will let me go ahead and type in a value for that prop. And after saving, I see that our tests still pass. Let's go to the test for our app and change this test to have another test to take a look at this new prop that we've provided for the label. In this case, we expect the wrapper to find something with a CSS class of counter and then the child under that called label, and its text should be current. So we're testing that this component also works when mounted as a child component of app.